I'm Connie.
And I'm Connie.
And we are
Bad News Travels Fast.
Did we just turn and talk to each other?
Yeah, we did. Hi.
Well, hello everyone. Seems like it's been a while.
It hasn't been. They don't know that.
Oh, okay. It's been a while for us though. It was Connie's birthday and she went on a trip. How was your trip?
It was good. I went to Aruba with my sister and my cousin, and it was nice, and her friend, so it was good. I enjoyed myself.
Good. Very nice. Very nice. Is your birthday over yet?
No, I celebrate the whole month.
Yeah,
it's not over.
Okay.
Yeah. If you still want to do something, I'm available.
You want to do something for Connie's birthday? Call her up. So, what are we talking about today?
Let's talk about Juneteenth. Today is Juneteenth.
Okay.
What do you think about it being a federal holiday? You want to tell people what Juneteenth is? You know, we can.
Yeah. So Juneteenth was made a federal holiday yesterday, day before yesterday.
Yeah, day before yesterday.
So now everyone will have the possibility. There will be a possibility of you having a day off
with pay.
With pay, because everybody doesn't get days off for holidays.
Yeah, like if you go to the hospital or stuff like that.
Yeah, so if you're like a nurse or something, like you
don't even Christmas or nothing off. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of places that will not get a day, that don't get days off on holidays. And most of the people that work those types of jobs are minorities. So I'm not sure that I agree that this is a wonderful thing.
Okay, say more.
Okay,
shout out to the colorful nails.
I'm sorry. Oh, these are like those stick-on thingies.
Oh, okay.
Like you stick them on. Oh, they're jacked up now. Like I've had them on for like 2 weeks and they're like coming off. Okay. But anyway, they're little stickers and you just like stick them on. Okay. They're not stickers though. It's like real paint. Yeah. But anyway, they're pretty cool though.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I distracted her. That's a Juneteenth.
Because, wait. Let me say this. They're pretty cool though because I don't get my nails done because my hands are always in water. And anytime I go to get my nails done, they're like, it's over like in a day or two.
Even if you get gel?
Yeah, man. Like after a couple days, it still starts to chip at the tips and stuff like that. So gel doesn't really help. And I don't do the acrylic and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I get gel because gel doesn't chip. Like gel doesn't chip on my toes. Like I can have this on for like a month and I'll still be good. But I know you're washing and cleaning and so.
Yeah, and I got gel on my toes a couple times and I felt like my toenails were getting brittle. So I don't know. I just don't do. It's whatever.
Okay.
So anyway, these are really cool because you just like roll them on or whatever, and then they kind of last like kind of long actually because these been on for 2 weeks. So surprisingly, there's still paint on my nails, and I've had my hands in water. So I said maybe I'll try these more often.
Yeah.
You still have to take them off with
nail polish remover.
Nail polish remover, and you can. So I got these from a lady. Actually, I'll put it in the link.
Okay. I
got it from a lady that I work for. She like sells them or something like that, but you can buy them online. No, not.
Okay, so we'll put it in the link.
This isn't a Black History moment or
business.
Yeah, this isn't a black business, but she's pretty cool. All right, so anyway. Juneteenth is a federal holiday in the United States commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. It is also often observed for celebrating African American culture. Originating in Galveston, Texas, it has been celebrated annually on June 19th in various parts of the United States since 1866. So I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we used to always take, well, when Imani and Elijah was little, when my older children were younger, we used to always take them to the Juneteenth event, whatever they were having. They would have like vendors and clothes and stuff like that. Even the police would be there doing the fingerprints and for the children and stuff like that. So I always thought that was cool, and I knew about Juneteenth, but when I moved down here, nobody seemed to know what Juneteenth was, which was kind of weird.
Some people learned about it last year with all the Black history and all the, kind of George Floyd stuff. So yeah, people didn't know. We didn't do that in New York. I don't remember ever going to a Juneteenth anything.
Okay.
So it was nice that you did it. So tell me how you feel about it being a federal holiday, and then I'll give my piece on it.
Okay, so I feel like this. Not that I wouldn't like to have a day off. Now, I don't work for anyone, so I basically have to tell myself to have a day off on that day if it's a holiday. But if I was working for someone, depending on where I work, I could possibly get the day off or not get the day off. So to me, as a Black person or African American, it's like it might affect me, it might not, depending on my job. And then you can have everybody gets the day off. So mostly like rich white folks, no offense, is going to have the day off. And like minorities are not going to have the day off. So I'm a little confused by why this is the focus right now. Because okay, like that's nice, but we have an issue with racism, and we have an issue with policing, and we have an issue with our justice system.
We have an issue with our education system.
We have an issue with our education system. To me, those are more important things than making this a national holiday.
Right. And so it was something like it was a unanimous agreement to pass it through Congress. Given that we couldn't get the anti-lynching bill through, we couldn't get the George Floyd bill through, but we can get this through. So, I think it's nice, but for me, this is not reform. This is not really doing anything for African Americans that I'm looking at. And I heard somebody say, like, we're all excited about, Juneteenth being a federal holiday. It's nice to memorize, to know that. And mind you, like, the people enslaved in Texas was slaves for another 2 years after the emancipation already happened.
Right.
So then somebody had to go, like soldiers had to go and let them know, like, hold on, you're free. And then on June 19th, they were finally free when they were really free 2 years ago and didn't know it.
And also, a lot of people make excuses like, oh, well, maybe they didn't, the information didn't get to them or something like that. That's not what happened. A lot of people didn't want to let go of their slaves. They didn't.
Right.
Point blank, period.
Right.
So they had to be made to release them.
Right. 2 years later.
2 years later.
After it was already signed that everybody was free. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So there were a lot of people still holding on to their slaves. I watched a video, this was a couple years ago, but a man who was born into slavery, he was still a slave in the 80s, I want to say. He was still a slave. So, okay, so I'm saying he was still a slave. If you watched the video, you would say he was still a slave. Okay, so he was born into it.
Got it.
So basically, like, his mother was a slave for real. And then he... a
slave for real.
I mean, like a slave, like a slave.
Yeah.
Before the slaves were free.
Yeah.
He ended up staying with the master. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so he's old. He's an old man, like really old. And he was still there and still working the field.
Oh, they wasn't paying him? I thought maybe.
They asked him why he hadn't left. And he said, well, where was I going to go?
Oh, yeah, because he had a room there. He probably somewhere to sleep.
When you talk to the man that he was living with, it just sounded like he was still a slave. And I was just like it kind of like brought me to tears a little bit. You can tell that he was a little bit, I don't want to say slow, but I'll say like environmentally slow. Like not knowing what's going on in the world and stuff like that. Still living in the little slave house or whatever, and that whole thing. It was
so really, like, did his mother have passed on and he just stayed after she died?
Yeah.
And where was his father?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't even know if they may have asked him or mentioned it, but I don't remember that. I just remember sitting there with my mouth wide open, like, you're still a slave. Like, that's all I kept thinking in my mind. Like, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Even though you're not being beaten, Mm-hmm. And then he did tear up because he talked about, excuse me. he talked about another man, I guess, in another plantation or whatever, how he dug his own grave, to be put in it. Like he dug his own grave. Like they killed him. They made him dig his own grave. And so I guess, that affected him in a way. So when he mentioned it, he kind of like teared up and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, but you're still a slave. But he's thinking in his mind, I'm not being beat anymore.
So it's better than it was.
Right. And where else was I going to go? I don't know anybody.
And now we don't know his education and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I tried to find that video, again, I couldn't find it. I don't even know. Excuse me. I stumbled upon the video anyway, but I should have kept it.
Yeah. So let me finish the quote I was saying. Somebody said we're being, no. I had started talking about the history with the Texas being 2 years later. They made the comment while we're all celebrating, this is a distraction because they're having meetings about not teaching the history of slavery in schools, right? Which is called the critical race theory,
right?
And so, and then I think I said Idaho.
And they keep putting Black people on Fox News to say they don't agree with the critical race theory.
They find one or two
which
people.
Is really working my last nerve. I don't watch Fox News because they have a underlying tone of racism, and I don't understand how African Americans. I don't understand if you're an African American. I don't understand how you can watch Fox News and not see the undertones of racism, the self-righteousness, the narcissism, all of that. Now, all the news, they have a tone of we're pushing this agenda, mm-hmm. right? But to continuously watch that one with the underlying tones of we hate your skin color, that is really weird to me to be watching that as a news show. And I've heard pastors say little quotes from Fox News in their pulpits that are Black. And to me, that's crazy. But anyway, I'm sorry. I got off on a little tangent.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with critical race theory, it's they're trying to be more diverse in how they teach history to kids, and they don't want to continue to teach about the history of slavery, or they want to teach the good parts of slavery, which I'm very unclear about whether the good parts, besides the fact that we built the White House and we built the country and we used cotton and cottonness and everything. Maybe those are the good parts. We made people rich off of it. I don't know. But I'm just trying to figure out what's the good part of slavery. I'm so serious.
Okay, there was nothing good to us.
Correct. So I don't understand.
About slavery. Nothing.
I know, but they said they want to teach the good parts. And so I'm trying to come up with it in my mind.
Good for the white man.
Right.
So that's why none of this stuff makes sense to me, that we don't understand. Decisions are being made still concerning our entire nation based off of white supremacy.
Right, because because every state that has done this, their governor happens to be Caucasian who are signing this in. I think it's Idaho, and I said another
Idaho,
place.
Arizona.
Arizona's working on it. Yes.
Florida, there's parts of Florida where it's banned.
Yes, so it is Idaho and Oklahoma passed similar laws. And Oregon, Arizona, Utah, and Missouri are working on it. Okay. And so they don't want to teach that aspect of slavery and, what happened to us. And it's being signed into law. So teachers can get fired for even talking about it. And this is a more emphasis on what Ice Cube was doing with us teaching our history to our kids, mm-hmm. right? So if it's not being taught in school, the parents are going to have to teach it, given that the parents don't.
Right.
Right. And so I think that is a bigger issue that nobody is talking about. And this is just being approved. And now, mind you, right, nobody's talking about not teaching the Holocaust, right? That didn't happen in the United States of America.
Also, critical race theory also includes what happened to the indigenous.
Yes, the indigenous people. Yes. And then the guy also talks about, in the Constitution, it calls Black people three-fourths of a person. And then three-fifths of a person. And then what does it say about
savage? It calls the Indians savages. Native Americans, sorry. Calls them savages.
Right. So
all throughout.
The Constitution says that. but we want to say that racism is not still here, like we wasn't built on racism. It's not a systemic problem when our founding fathers who are writing constitutions and laws in which we have to be governed by are kind of including us out, but it's not.
Yeah, so critical race theory, just giving a definition.
Okay.
It examines the social and cultural and legal issues as they relate to race and racism.
Sure.
It is an academic discipline composed of civil rights scholars in the U.S. who seek to critically examine the law to show first that it maintains white supremacy, white power, and enforces societal or structural racism.
So they don't want people to know that exists? Like,
everyone knows that it exists.
I know, but they don't want our kids coming up.
Even white people. I mean, like, I remember, do you remember, what was it? Jane Elliott was the lady who did the, what was it called? She would bring like groups of people together, the blue eye, the colored eye.
Okay.
The colored eye thing. So what she would do is separate black, no, not black, brown eyes, blue eyes.
Okay.
You were separate. She would treat the brown-eyed people better than she would treat the blue-eyed people.
Okay.
Right? And they would get like really upset or whatever.
Okay.
Now this is like an hour or maybe just a couple hours.
Okay. I see where you're going. I see where you're going.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they would be ready to lose it, the blue-eyed people. Right? So I remember her saying, you know, people were saying, oh, well, we don't know that all this racism is happening, you know, this and that. And she said, well, let me ask you this. Would you be willing to be black? Raise your hand if you're willing to be black.
I'm already black. I get it.
No one raised their hand.
Not even the brown-eyed people?
Because they know what happens to them.
So they just said the statement before that they didn't realize.
Right. But she said, she was saying everyone knows, sees, and feels the undertone of the abuse that black people are dealing with on a regular basis. And we act like we don't see it. So even with this whole George Floyd thing happening, you had a lot of white people that were like, I didn't know. Like, I had no idea. You know what I mean? Basically, they had no idea that they were racist. They had racist ideals. Now, how do you not know that? You could say you don't know that because
you don't do what people did back in the day.
In everything that we do. Everything.
Right. So it's a norm. It's law. It's what we're supposed to do. So it's easier to not to realize that it's happening or admit to it.
It's taught in school by there being more white teachers than any other color teachers. And those white teachers, not all of them, but the majority of white teachers are more aggressive with minorities. Aggressive in their tone, like the tone
their
is
stance,
different.
everything, their body language,
the mercy that they give. So you'll have a black kid that keeps getting out of his seat or whatever. He's kicked out after like 2 or 3 times. You might have a white kid getting out of his seat and she'll keep saying, you know, Johnny, sit down, Johnny. I'm just saying. So everybody sees that and they're experiencing it. And deep down inside, you feel like black people are bad because they're treated bad.
I saw something recently and it talked about widening the screen. So it had like some black kids go into a store and a guy got cameras and he just looking at it and they grabbing stuff and they talk and it's like, ooh, let me see. And then at the end, it was like, oh, they went and paid or whatever. You see a black guy leaving. He got a bag in his hand. It's dark. He walking through this alley. He knocking on the door. You like, oh, what's in the bag? He opened this. His daughter's birthday party. He gives her this big old gift. So it was like widen the screen so we can really see the full story and not looking at it from a closed view or one aspect of it. And I think that people, you know, you mentioned that some Caucasians are saying that they didn't understand, but it's hard to recognize what you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's very hard to recognize that.
Or even having the attitude, well, it ain't me. I'm the one on top. Thank God.
Right. And I don't think all of them think, everybody thinks like that, but it's hard not to recognize because you don't have to deal with it every day. It reminds me when I talked to the Caucasian officer, he was like, yo, if I was a, African-American, I would be frustrated too. Like all this stuff and getting pulled over and getting stopped and all of that. Like I would be frustrated too. But I think one thing that we often forget, because, at my school, we talk about social justice. So I had to do a social justice project. I think the thing about it is, and even in class, somebody has said this, they was like, because it's like quiet when we talk about race. I'm like, why everybody so darn quiet? Like it's happening. Like we see it. So why we don't talk about it? And so it's like, well, we don't want to say the wrong thing, or we're trying to figure out how to say it. The same thing with that the Caucasian officer said to me, that he was really, really nice, very, genuine and stuff like that. We had a really good conversation. And he said, like, we don't want to have conversations like this because people don't want to say the wrong thing and then be accused of being a racist. But I think you need to say the wrong thing so we can unpack it. Let's deal with it. That you have racist ideas or thoughts.
Be afraid to admit that you're racist. Like that's it. That's a whole problem for me. Like that's a big problem in the U.S. It's like being called a racist is the worst thing that you can be called. No, I think the worst thing is that you not admitting that you are a racist.
Right.
So it's basically like, I don't want to say the wrong thing because I don't want people to see that I have some racist views.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Let's deal with that and unpack it, because what you're unwilling to say or confront, you're never going to deal with. It's never going to go away. So we need to say those things that, my sister was saying this when she was having a conversation with me and my friend, like, I need to say the things that's going to make y'all mad because y'all need to deal with it and unpack it.
And how about this? Why are you still saying the wrong thing in 2021? I mean, that's a whole problem as well.
Because you're saying what you feel, Consuelo. And I think you need to mean what you say and say what you mean. Everybody has it.
How about I have a thought in my mind. It ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm thinking in my mind that all Black people they're inherently dangerous, right? That's an improper thought.
Correct.
That is a white supremacist thought.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I need to do with that thought? The last thing I need to be worried about is saying that out loud. No, I need to deal with me. I already know that my thoughts are wrong on this. And I feel the same way with police officers. I feel the same way with teachers. Like, you already know the stuff that you be thinking that's wicked.
Right. But my thing is, when you don't say it out loud around somebody, nobody's going to check you on your thoughts that we don't hear.
This is true.
Right? So my thing is, say it. Let it slip out so we can deal with it.
Because you're just going to act out.
Right. You're going to act out. You're going to suppress it. You're going to be fighting thoughts with thoughts. But what happens is when it comes out, right? The Bible says life and death is in the power of the tongue, right? If I don't speak it out and talk about it, how do I ever deal with it? I need to say it around you so you can be like, oh, word, Connie, that's how you feel. And I'm like, oh, that's how you feel. And we work through it and then we go on. You know what I'm saying?
I think another issue too is that people don't know like what's next. Like if I say I hate all white people, I don't, y'all. I really don't. If I say I hate all white people,
I don't hate anybody.
But I'm just saying, let's just say I feel that and I think that. Now what?
Right.
Like how do I fix that if I hate all white people?
Right. I think that needs to be a conversation. Now we need to get in why have you hate people? Maybe it's an experience you had.
Because they're wicked. Because they made us slaves. Because there's still racism happening. Because white officers are killing Black people. Because white judges are putting Black men in jail.
You should talk about everything.
Let's just say I have all the reasons that racism is happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I hate white people.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they won't admit that they're racist too.
Okay. Okay.
And they get away with a lot of stuff.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So now what?
So we're still unpacking it. Like I would take each thing and unpack it. And what does that do for you? What is this hate doing for you? Is it stopping it from happening? No. Right? So what is it doing but making you upset and having you all frustrated and upset when you see somebody on the center row and then when a cop pull you over, you got an attitude and all this, like, what is it doing for you? Right? So that's the next thing. Like, yeah, I understand you feel this way. Yeah, it's wrong. But what do we do with that? But if we don't talk about it, nothing happens. So the silence and all the stuff that we feel that are negative and wrong are eating us up inside. And then we have this outburst and it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't mean to, right? But you did, because you never did nothing with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So now it's acted out in a way that you didn't plan to. So maybe I didn't really want to kill you, but because of all the things I've been dealing with,
I just killed you.
Right.
Or even like the situation with the lady who, with the bird watching, the man that was bird watching, and the lady who called the police and faked like it was all on camera.
Yeah.
She faked like he was doing something bad to her. She's like, I'm going to call the police and tell them that you're hurting me. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, oh my gosh, there's a black guy. It's not funny now. Do you know she's suing somebody right now? But anyway,
she's suing him for what?
Because she was wrongly, I forget it. I don't know. But anyway, like if you have someone like that who says, I don't know why I did that in that moment. Like, I'm really not a racist. I just kind of like lost it in that moment.
Right. And so my thing is, there are little moments, like, cause stuff don't just happen. Stuff is premeditated. It's planned. It's thought about several times. Mm-hmm. And then it's a moment that comes where it's unleashed. We know that spiritually. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it isn't. That's what I'm saying. We need to unpack it and deal with those things. Because if it's a thought that's not dealt with, it doesn't go away. It manifests and it grows and it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets stronger. So that's what I'm saying. If you speak it out, let's have the conversations. We need to have the difficult conversations. Yeah. Like, we're not going to grow as a people. We're not going to grow as individuals. So we don't have the hard conversations. Yeah. And be truthful about how we feel. So when you got to think about the right way to say something, you're trying to fix it up so it doesn't sound as bad as it is. Like I tell people, like, just say it. Like, just say it. I don't want you I'm trying to find the words. Just give me the words to do that.
Yeah, right? Because you're really being fake.
Yeah, you're not being totally and brutally honest if you're trying to find the words. You're trying to think about the other person's feelings and, okay, let me say this in a way that doesn't hurt them. While I understand that, and I'm not saying this, you should be outright rude and disrespectful and, like that to people. Everybody is in charge of their own feelings, right? So if you say something to me, it may hurt my feelings, but you're not responsible for my feelings. Connie has to work through and deal with that. Yeah. I need to be the friend that's going to say the truth, whether you like it or not, because that's what love does. I have to deal with whatever I feel after. That is not your responsibility, and there's nothing you can do about my feelings. Yeah. So even if you say something to me that I'm not going to like in the nicest way possible, right? If I say, Connie, I don't have nothing wrong with your clothes, but you know what? Like, I don't know a nice way to say I don't like the outfit.
Okay.
Right? I don't like your hair. Like, I don't know a nice way to say that. Oh, it doesn't look like it normally. Like, I don't know you see what I'm saying? Like, all that, the roundabout way. Like, just say what you mean to me, what you say. I don't have time to figure out.
Or like when Imani be like, I'll be like, is this outfit cute? And she be like, well...
Monty does that. I'd be like, Monty, you want to grease my hair? She be like, she won't just say no. She like, and then eventually I'm going to just leave her alone, right? So it's like,
she just need to tell the truth. Huh?
No, I'm going to do it. Okay. Like, what am I going to do with that?
That's ugly.
Right. Or no, I don't like that. And that's the thing about it too, with communication we talked about. Don't ask a question that you really don't want the answer to.
Yeah.
You like my outfit?
Don't say, am I fat? If you really don't want somebody to be like, yeah.
Don't ask the questions you don't want to answer to, right? So most of the times when I ask questions, I know the answer already. Right. So I ain't surprised.
This is true.
You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing. So let's unpack the issue. Because if we don't talk about it, then nothing happens. We don't deal with it. And I know that after talking about it, there needs to be some action. But you have to first have the conversation before any action is taking place.
Right.
So the fact that we're silent about it, that's why, it's a whole thing. Even like I love Zora Neale Hurston's quote, like, if you're silent about your pain, people will kill you and say you enjoyed it. Yeah. Because I didn't even know it bothered you. So I kept doing it. Mm-hmm. Because I thought you liked it.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know it bothered you. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I just think that we need to do that. Begin to start having some things. I feel like the president and the leaders, I don't know how we need to get an audience with them, because I feel like they're talking to leaders who are senators and stuff like that. But I feel like that we don't talk to the people. Even when I talked with the officer, he was telling me, what was the question that I asked? He was talking to me and he was saying like, he doesn't, we were talking about like Eric Gardner and all of this kind of stuff. And he was talking about like, how when you arrest somebody, you wrestling somebody, sometimes your adrenaline is pumping and you don't realize what you're doing or whatever like that until it's too late because the body's not moving. Right. And he was like, so and stuff like that. And I said, I understand. I said, however, if I right? Get into a fight, and my adrenaline's pumping, and I don't realize I ain't stopping until they stop moving, right? There's no, Connie, you made a mistake. Your adrenaline was pumping. We understand. No, you're going to jail.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when I started talking to him.
So how are you you're accidentally killing people, and that's supposed to just be okay because you're a policeman.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. So what happened was when we were talking, he helped me see things from his perspective, and he saw things from my perspective. Right. One thing we talked about getting pulled over, he was like, I've never killed anybody. He was like, sometimes I'd be pulling up to a car and I got my hand on it and whatever. He's like, every time he delayed, he was right to delay. Like they didn't have a gun or something like that. I get that most officers are killed pulling people over. Mm-hmm. Right. And of course, if you got a gun in the car, you know what you're reaching for. They don't know. But what I told him is when we get pulled over, it's like, let me get my ID, my registration, everything out. So you don't got to wait and I could just give it to you. You see me reaching. I'm reaching to get the stuff that I know you're going to ask me for. So we just started talking about that. So to talk to a civilian or to talk to, a citizen is what he called me. You know what I'm saying? It's good to have these conversations because they don't see it. And I'm like, when people are fearful, if we get pulled over and we're afraid because we done seen 10 people get killed by the cops who look like us, right? I said, fear makes you respond in ways that you don't really would do, that you wouldn't really do. You wouldn't normally respond that way. So you nervous, you anxious, you look jittery. So you thinking like, oh, what's going on? What you doing? But it's like, I'm just fearful, for my life.
Be murdered.
Correct. And you're
driving too fast.
And you're perceiving it wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But one thing that he said, he didn't like the military policing. He was like, that needs to stop. He was like, it shouldn't be that way. And one thing that he suggested too, he said when he first became an officer, he started in prison. He said in prison, there's no gun. So you could pop off like you want to and get punched in your face, right? So he said, your hand game about to be good. He said, but you learn to use your verbal skills. You learn to use that. And he was like, then he wanted to go to, I forgot what it was called. Like, it's when like they police a neighborhood, but they're on foot. And so you walk around a neighborhood, you're in there every day. I forgot what it was called. And he was like, he did that. And he did it in like the Baltimore in the hood. And he was like, so you can't jump in your car and run away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And he was like, well, the thing about it, after he was doing that, it was a punishment to him. And he said it shouldn't be a punishment. He wrecked a car or something like that. And for punishment, he was on like community policing duty or whatever. He was like, I knew the business owners. People invited me to their house. I ate food I never would have tasted. And he was like, you know what happened was if something popped off, then community was my backup.
Right.
Right? Because you know these people. Right? Yeah. But they don't do that no more. And then when it is done, it's a punishment. So I feel like I got to be with you for punishment.
And something goes down, like, something happens and nobody seems to know what happened. You can go to that trusted person and be like, hey, what happened? Who did it?
Right. Because you've built relationships with these people. And he stopped seeing people, right? So all the things that he heard about African Americans, let's say, in Baltimore, wasn't true.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you on foot, you get to know the people. So like going back to that, to doing those things is what one of the things that he was talking about. Cause I was like, do you think there needs to be police reform? And he was like, yes. And I'm like, what would it look like? And stuff like that. But we have to have the conversations because I got to understand some things by talking to him and he got to see my point of view. Like, I get that. But like, this is how we see it. He's like, yo, I never considered that. Right. So what if I never would have had a conversation with him?
Right. That's right.
Because that ain't who I talk to. I'm gonna talk to all the people that look like me. We gonna argue and complain about the things, and we're not talking to anybody else to get any other things. That's why I said communication is so important. So.
We definitely need police reform.
We do. I'm not
we need a bunch of reforms. But the white woman who called the police on the black bird watcher in Central Park, she's suing her former employer over firing her. So she got fired for that whole situation. But I'm thinking we can do a different podcast talking about that.
All right. So what you got a factor?
Oh yeah. Black so business? I do have a black.
You do that.
Oh, black business. What is that? Oh, okay. These are
some cute shorts.
Cute biker shorts from Chimzi Fashion. Chimzi, Chimzi Fashion.
That's cute.
And these are really cute on Imani when she wears them. And she's got a big booty, but they're still cute.
She has a pair on right now. Try to get it, show it to the screen.
Yeah, she wouldn't bring that big booty over here. Yeah. So that, and then I have a Black History fact that I put in my camera.
I did. I saw you taking pictures.
All right. So, 1 in 4 cowboys. Wait, this isn't charging. I'm sorry, distracted. 1 in 4 cowboys was black. Despite the stories told in popular books.
There's a movie out about black cowboys.
Yes.
So I forgot what it's called.
Oops. Okay.
Concrete Cowboy talks about black cowboys.
Concrete
Cowboy. It's a movie on
Okay.
Netflix.
In fact, it's believed that the real Lone Ranger was inspired by an African-American man named Bass Reeves. Reeves had been born a slave but escaped west during the Civil War, where he lived in what was then known as Indian Territory. He eventually became a deputy U.S. Marshal, was a master of disguise, an expert marksman, had a Native American companion, and rode a silver horse. His story was not unique, however. In the 19th century, the Wild West drew enslaved blacks with the hope of freedom and wages. When the Civil War ended, freedmen came west with the hope of a better life where the demand for skilled labor was high. These African Americans made up at least a quarter of the legendary cowboys who lived dangerous lives facing weather, rattlesnakes, and outlaws while they slept under the stars driving cattle herds to market. While there was little formal segregation in frontier towns and a great deal of personal freedom, black cowboys were often expected to do more of the work in the roughest jobs compared to their white counterparts. Loyalty did develop between the cowboys on a drive, but the black cowboys were typically responsible for breaking the horses and being the first ones to cross flooded streams during cattle drives. In fact, it is believed that the term cowboy originated as a derogatory term used to describe black cowhands. Wow, cowboy. Cowboy, literally. Like the cowboy.
It's clear. It's clear. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay. I'm like,
Crystal
cowboy.
clear.
Okay.
Super green.
All right. So we're learning so much about Black history. It's amazing. We use so many words that we don't even know originated from, like slavery and stuff. Cowboy. Okay. So anyway, please like, share, and subscribe. And also follow us on Instagram.
Yes.
Did it right that time. And we just really appreciate you watching. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
All right. Talk to you later.